All right. So our next group we have Ray Woods, who's our director of user experience on our team. So he helps design a lot of the interfaces, not just of our tools, but actually a lot of our sites that we launch in partnership with our brands. We also have Sam Richard, who's joined the team in the last couple months. It's been about
September.
Yeah, all right, it's been a while. But Sam has come in as the responsive design guru, SaaS guru, CSS guy, and he's shaking it up quite a bit internally for us. And they're going to talk to you about some of the challenges of responsive design.
All right. Good morning. Who's been here the whole time? All right. Well done. So we're going to talk about advertising in a responsive world. How many people know what? I don't want to do that.
Okay.
How many people know what responsive design is? Okay, a lot of people.
Keep going.
All right. So I'm just trying to get a lay of the audience. All right. So I'm Ray Woods, Director of User Experience here for ONTS. I've been doing this stuff, advertising, marketing, websites, and stuff for over 20 years, I hate to admit. Some of the places I've worked, foxkids.com, AOL, and the Walt Disney Company, which my boss always liked it when I called it that. And then Sam.
I'm Sam Richard. I'm somewhat new to NBC. I'm the organizer of a bunch of New York meetup groups on responsive web design and SaaS and front-end development. And previously, I've worked for the World Economic Forum and the New York State Senate.
Excellent. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is why responsive web design, advertising challenges of responsive web design.
Say hi to the camera.
Oh, hi. And then I want to talk about priming the pump. So part of what we want to do is start the conversation about advertising on responsive sites. Responsive sites, Josh gave an amazing talk, I thought. I'm really jealous he had all those Legos. They were great. But we see all the advantages. A disadvantage is it's really hard to advertise on a responsive site, and without advertising, none of us are sitting in this room and this building doesn't exist. So it's kind of important. Let's dive right in. So why responsive design? Cars have websites now, or browsers. Refrigerators have screens and browsers. Soon, all devices. Is there a reason it's cut off? Oh, no, that's just my ending in a preposition. Soon, all devices will, right? And we know this. It's not just phones. It's everything, and those are all opportunities for us to interact with our customers. Sam likes numbers. I'm going to let him talk to these numbers.
Yeah, so we live in a multi-device world. 87% of U.S. adults own cell phones, 45% own smartphones, 31% tablets. But crucially for our company, adults between the ages of 18 and 49, of those 62% of them own smartphones, not just cell phones, but smartphones. Cell phone coverage for that age demographic is 93%. So pretty much, or the majority, if not almost every single person who we're trying to reach owns some sort of mobile device and owns some sort of mobile device, therefore can access the web, and they will probably browse the web on. So we need to be cognizant of these people, and we need to not give them, like Josh said, a stripped down, less intense version. We need to provide them and think of them as first-class citizens. Hell, they are us. And we need to be cognizant of them when we design and when we build our websites.
Right. And how I like to characterize these numbers is that we're all mobile even when we're on the couch watching TV, because a lot of times the phone is the computer that's closest to us to interact with. And finally, it's the content of the content, silly. So people don't tune in to television to watch television. They tune in to watch Liz Lemon or to catch up on SVU or to see who wins The Voice, right? It's the characters and the stories that we are great and have been doing for a long time are the reasons that people tune in. It's the same reason they come to the website. They don't come to the website because it's responsive or it's cool or the design. They come because of the content. Okay, so some other advantages on the technical side. Simplifies content management, right? You publish once, it distributes everywhere. We all understand that. There's a single technological platform to support. The advantage of that is we can make it deeper and richer technologically. It's easier for us to pivot. And finally, it's future friendly. So as the new washing machine comes out with a screen on it, we can put content on there. We can put ads on there. But we need to be able to design in a way that it works on those screens. So, challenges. We have to rethink our content. I think Josh did an amazing presentation about exactly that. And I'm not going to try and restate all of that. But the important thing is understanding what our story to the customer is, right? Who are we as a brand and what are we trying to say? When we watch a television show, you watch SVU, you know what that's about. When you watch The Voice, you know what that's about. And they spend a lot of time and energy thinking about what that content means to their customers. We need to do the same thing for our websites. Also, another challenge, oh, and I wanted to add, that's really hard, right? Like we all need to lose 5 pounds. But dieting is hard. We have to eat a lot of salad, we have to do a lot of exercise, etc. So that's really the challenge, finding how to pare away what we don't need and being really disciplined about that. New design and development practices are also needed. I think Josh talked about that, and we've experienced it in our group. Designers need to learn how to code, or at least know about code, and coders, they need to learn about design, user interaction models, and which color blue is really the better color to make that button pop, right? So it really has to be a very collaborative experience. One thing that has been really helpful has been the Agile process that we've been doing in P7, where the designers and the coders kind of sit together and talk about stuff, and they can see things move and change and make decisions. And it's not just about getting the design, it's about the other two educating each other. It's very similar to what Josh was talking about, how when you have a conversation with someone, you kind of work your way towards an endpoint. Finally, and flatly, current online advertising models. Josh also referenced this. Sorry, I didn't see his presentation before. No collaboration beforehand. So it does, and it's kind of funny, just a sidebar, that everybody kind of keeps hitting the same points, right? We're all navigating in the same landscape. And I think it's really kind of nice how independently we've all come to the same kind of conclusions. So finally, with the advertising models, what's broken, it's not just that the ads themselves don't work as the pages change size or they show up on different viewports. It's that the back-end systems aren't set up to support that. We have a mobile ad server, we have a desktop ad server, but as we just saw, they're just devices, they're just browsers, they're just ways for us to communicate. And so we need to kind of break that model down. Okay? So.
Sorry.
That's all right. As I said, doesn't work well, if at all. Sam has built some technical, some demos to start the conversation. He started with very simple stuff based on what we have currently and moving to more complex, rich ads. So that I'll let him talk a lot about that. Flash is dead on mobile. It's declining on desktops. I remember in 2001 learning ActionScript, right? Designers have to learn how to code. And that was good then, doesn't work now. iOS famously doesn't support it at all. Android doesn't support it anymore after a failed attempt. You know, it's not on Windows Phone, it's not on BlackBerry 10, right? Anybody know? Sorry, BlackBerry. And there's even desktop browsers now ship either with it, without it or with it turned off by default. So we can't really rely on Flash to give us interactive experiences. We need to move on to the more modern web that we're using for our website. So it's the same technology we're using, HTML5, CSS3. Finally, the ads, well, we talked about websites, responsive design. It's responsive in that it shows on the viewport, but it also reacts to the customer, right? It's listening to the customer, what the customer wants and is looking for. The ads should do the same, because if the ad is valuable, it's going to communicate to the customer. This is not a foreign concept. We do this now on television, right? When you watch a show, they put an ad on there. One, it's based on the context of the demographic and who's watching the show. Two, they have characters, they have a story, even if it's a 30-second thing, right, to kind of compel you. So it uses the same kind of communication models and context to communicate and provide value to the advertisers. We need to do the same thing with our ads. So, to prime the pump, I'm going to let Sam demo. He's got some videos of 4 technological demos that he built. Pretty cool stuff. And then after that, we'll open it up for QA. I'm sure you guys have some questions. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Ray. So the first demo that we have is something I like to call ad swapping. We currently have a lot of solutions for, and before I continue, that is flashed off by default in Google Chrome. So I couldn't have seen that ad unless I clicked on it. Moving on. So this first solution is called ad swapping. And basically what we do is we take our current ad tags that we get from ad ops. We can do it, this is specifically done with Dart tags, but we should be able to do it with any ad tag that we get. And there's another example of Flash being off by default. And from the front end, I've decided when these ads should be swapped for different size ads. I know what size ads I have based on my Dart tags. And I'm just using a little bit of JavaScript to swap them in and swap them out as my design calls for them. As you can see, this is our DBTV demo site, and it's a responsive site. So this is an okay solution. What's nice about it is we can implement it right now, and we can implement it right now with the ad servers we have right now. On the downside, as you've seen, I've shown 3 different ads, all in the same ad space. And we have no control over what ad gets swapped out. So in this case, they're all house ads, but we could, in theory, be swapping a Coke ad for a Pepsi ad. And I don't think anyone would be happy with that. The other downside to this, maybe not so much for us specifically, but certainly for our ad partners, is that I've shown 6 different ads. Those are 6 new impressions. And that means that our advertisers aren't necessarily getting their money's worth. So again, not necessarily bad for us, but bad for our advertisers. We want a solution that works for everyone. Our second demo is current ads in a new creative type. So the idea here is instead of leveraging existing ad creative, we show what can happen if you build ad creative that is knowledgeable about the context it's being displayed in. So the previous solution was 100% a front-end solution. I am the front-end developer. I want to switch this ad tag now. I switch it. And I physically pull in a new ad. What this solution does is the ad itself is able to respond to the size that I need. Not whether it's on a desktop or a mobile device, but rather the size that it actually physically is. There's this awesome thing in CSS3 called media queries. One of the things we can do with media queries is we can say, what size am I? And once I know my size, I can do stuff to my screen. So this is really behind the scenes a website. This is a website that has 2 views. It has a rectangle ad view and it has a leaderboard ad view. But we have the technology, and the technology is fully backwards compatible to allow us to build ads that are aware of their surroundings and aware of what they, of how they're being viewed and how they're being served. When we use the technology, the rich tools and techniques that we have to build websites, to build advertisement, not only does our advertisement get better, it also becomes as rich as the sites that we build, producing a better user experience for everyone, more money for us, more interaction with for our advertisers, and the whole world is happy. The other advantage is, by building these ads using the same tools and techniques, our ads then can become better integrated into our sites themselves. So as you saw with the other 2 demos, we still had the same static ad sizes. They were a rectangle ad and a leaderboard ad. These next 2 demos are fluid ads, so they fill the space that they're in. and allow us to therefore have a better ad experience and better integrated ad in our site. On my left, your right, you're going to see a desktop browser, and my right, your left, you're going to see the iOS emulator. It is a version of essentially an iPhone, but that I can use on my desktop for testing. So this first one is an HTML5 video ad. This is a trailer for the Oblivion movie that's coming out soon. It's a video playing without Flash. You can do that, it's awesome, and it's actually really easy. As you can see, the ad fills the entire space that it's in and reacts to different sizes, and as it gets smaller and some of the more extraneous information, metadata around the title isn't needed, we drop it out. And as we have more room, we can pull it in, and the ad continues playing. Yes?
I just wanted to add one thing. So what's the point of having such a small ad? It can go full screen. So even on your phone, you could full screen it, right?
Which
so it's playing
we're about
and then
to see.
boom. Oh, excellent.
So on the other hand, we have our ad loaded up in the iOS emulator. If we scroll down, our ad is now there. This is a replica of my iPhone. I press play, I get a full video experience, like I would on YouTube, like I would on Vimeo, like I would anywhere else on Hulu. And I can throw my phone sideways, and I have that video still playing. I have a significantly more rich interaction with this ad simply by serving this video using modern tools and techniques as opposed to Flash, which wouldn't work. And then our final one is an interactive ad. We have really pretty animations, all done through CSS3. Again, no Flash. As you can see, this is fluid again. As it gets smaller and it gets larger, some of the more extraneous information for our ad itself goes away and it can come back. This isn't reducing content for our user. It's providing the best ad experience for what is truly important for what we're showing, which in this case is Subway, and then it's the sandwiches, and then it's the name of the campaign. What's nice about this is we're utilizing something called HTML5 location data. So what we've done is using HTML5, I can grab a user's location. And I've got fallbacks if a user declines or if a user doesn't have HTML5. And what I've done is I've mapped it on Google Maps. Then I've shown where all of the nearby Subway locations are. You tap on a Subway location. Works mobile as well. I tap on a Subway location. Then I can enter my order using a theoretical API, right? So it's not the ad that's the content. It's the sandwich that's the content. It's our API that's the content. So I say I want an Italian BLT without lettuce. I type in my email address and I click place order. And then Subway could theoretically send me an email when my sandwich is ready to be picked up from the Subway that I tapped on. It went a little bit fast, but it gets the location, the map gets centered on exactly where you are. If you want to try it out for yourself, we have it live. You can go to it on your phones, dbtv.nbcuni.com/ads. And it's not working, so you won't actually be able to order your sandwiches from the ad. But it's an example of what exactly you can do when your ads are built using the same technology stack as the websites that they're being served on. You can get more rich, more interactive interactions and a better experience for everyone. The ad now becomes useful instead of a pain to see and deal with.
Additionally, if I remember correctly, it's really just an HTML5 page.
Yes.
Built to be responsive, right?
Exactly.
And so the advantage to that is, okay, Nick and I were talking outside about scale, right? So right now, 300 by 250s, leaderboards, those have scale. They can scale across any site. But if you build this HTML5, this can actually be a site of their own that they then serve up into our sites, right? So they get scale and value. Ordering the sandwiches, it's a quick interface we put together really quick for this demo, but they could also have that as a tool for their site, right? So it's a more complete advertising experience and something that we should start talking about. I don't think that we'll change this, in 6 months or a year, but in 2 years, people are going to expect these kinds of things, and we need to start thinking about that now.
I think another great way that we can kind of bring this back in is, who here uses Seamless to order food? Who here cooks and uses recipe websites? So wouldn't it be great if you're on a recipe website and you're looking up recipes for chicken mole, which is a Mexican dish, and the advertisement there is for Seamless to say, messed up cooking? Why don't you order it from your local Mexican place? Because they have a full API where they can tap into your location and can filter for food preferences and location and price and cuisine. So it's a way to have an API-driven ad, which is super, super powerful in the same way that we can have API-driven mobile apps and native apps and desktop apps and websites. You can now have API-driven ads, which is something that's, I don't know many people talking about, but it's the conversation, like Ray said, that we should start to be having with our ad partners and with ad sales about how can we actually make ads useful for the customer as opposed to a nuisance. And
great.
That,
I think that's our presentation.
I think we'll take questions.
Quick and down and dirty. Anybody have any questions?
This may be a little unfair to do right after the last presentation, which talked about collaboration in the industry. But this kind of thing is valuable not just for us, but for our peers and competitors in the industry. Have we been looking at collaborating there and evangelizing these ideas with them or with agencies?
Absolutely. My hope is to work with the IAB and figure out a HTML5 advertising standard. Reason being is I'm a designer. I want to make sites that look good, and being stuck with these old ads is driving me. I've designed websites for 12 years with these ads in them. I want to do something new and cool, so yes.
The other nice thing about the solutions that we showed is we can still use the same ratios advertising agencies are comfortable with. We can use the 728 by 90 ratio and the 300 by 250 ratio. But the key is they're no longer fixed sizes. They are now ratios that we can that can flex and scale. So it's something that we can that is probably a little bit easier to convince advertisers and ad agencies to start working with, because they're already somewhat comfortable with the constraints of the sizes. Now it's instead of a fixed size, it's a fluid size.
Right. And just the last point to that, the reason I titled it Priming the Pump is I think that there may be, there's an opportunity for us to kind of lead this a little bit, which may mean bringing some of these ad designs and partnering with advertisers in-house and starting it that way, right? Working with CNBC, I know that they do custom ads for their app, right? So, and they do those in-house, so they get the creative from the agency, build it, and supply it. So there may be some stuff that we need to start looking at as far as doing that, and how do we set that up. So, anybody else? Susan?
Is there any additional complication from the ad delivery system, being, whoever's serving the ads, Dart versus Freewheel versus, and the kinds of wrappers they could put around them?
So there aren't necessarily. The biggest change that would need to happen from the advertising servers side would be they would need to support HTML files as ad types as opposed to simply Flash files or images. And B, they would need to be a little bit smarter with their iframe click-throughs. So right now, both those servers can serve an iframe ad, and you can click inside the iframe and get it and have the window open on your main browser. The big difference is what they would need to do is, instead of having just a single click anywhere opens it, they would need to be a little bit smarter, and that would need to be driven by an ad. But that's all API stuff, and that's easy enough to figure out once we've convinced them that this is the solution to work with.
Although, as a side point, there will need to be some organizational or structural changes in the way ads are sold, right? And what the inventories are, how they're distributed. Right now, there's the artificial desktop and mobile, which made sense at one point. But we're going to have to look at that anyway at some point. It might be nice to get ahead of it.
Yeah, and speaking to ads being sold, right now ads are generally sold fixed size, fixed position as well. And that just straight doesn't work when it comes to responsive. Even if all we were doing is the first ad swap, that first ad swap, it can't be sold fixed size, fixed position because we can be using a 300 by 250 not in a sidebar. In fact, if we're looking at the general range of pixels that sites cover, for the majority of that, sites generally won't have a sidebar. So ad sales needs to start at the moving away from fixed size, fixed position first. And I think that's probably easier to convince ad sales of than it is create all new copy for us, all new content for us. Mike, and then we'll go like that.
So you guys think that the technology is there to be able to have third parties serving HTML and JavaScript into our pages without creating major security holes? Because I feel like that opening that up, the kind of creative we see right now and the kind of stuff that advertisers try to attach to our ads already cause problems. And how would you, or have you put any thought around the security involved in that?
100%. Every single one of these is boxed by an iframe. And what's nice about iframes is iframes are sandboxed environments that you can't really get in or out of unless they make very special calls. So if the ad servers are structured in a way where there are specific APIs for specific calls, then the advertiser can try to do whatever they'd like inside of there, but it's going to be hard for them to break out of that iframe once they're inside of it.
Yeah, and realistically, Flash had the same kind of challenges, right? Flash was buggy, and there were security issues as well, weight issues, even GIF ads. There were weight and size issues. I remember building AOL GIF ads that had to be 7K, and just the crazy things you had to do to get those to work. So it's a continuum.
Do you have something to add for the iframe?
No, I want to see the interactive ad again.
Okay. CSS animations works everywhere. Back to questions. You still have a question?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So 1, 2.
So seeing this kind of work get done is really cool because in the Drupal community, we frequently talk about this sort of stuff, and it's usually followed by, well, but nobody does that well. Where you talk about building ads for websites. Are you guys planning on? Well, first of all, what were any technical hurdles that Drupal could be better at to enable more of this functionality? And then secondly, are you planning on sharing these thoughts with the Drupal community as well and some of the stuff that you've done?
Yes.
No sharing.
No sharing.
No sharing at all
ever.
I don't like talking at all. Yes. So Drupal in general is pretty terrible at its HTML output. We're fixing that somewhat in Drupal 8 with the Twig initiative, and hopefully with some of the work that Sam Boyer has been doing with Scotch. If that gets into Drupal 8, then that will make dealing with responsive web design easier, which in theory should make everyone's life easier. As far as sharing these with the Drupal community, fortunately, I sit right next to the advertiser, or to the maintainer of both the Dart and the DFP module, and we have had conversations about how to implement ad swapping in those modules themselves, or as separate modules. So we are, in fact, looking into building that and then contributing that back to Drupal, and therefore allowing pretty much anyone who would like to use the ad swapping method. But these other methods, like we've been saying, kind of require more industry-wide changes. So once we get industry-wide buy-in, then we're cool, and we can contribute that back as well.
This is just a quick question going back to iframes. My understanding was going forward that a lot of the browsers will be deprecating support for iframes.
Not true at all.
Okay. That was
HTML5 is full support for iframes. It's the old... Did anyone build websites in the 90s? You know those frames from the 90s where you've got a sidebar and then a big scroll bar and then another thing? So those are frames. Frames have been deprecated to hell.
Well, yeah.
Iframes, on the other hand, not only are still totally relevant, they've actually improved and added upon them in HTML5. We're not taking advantage of those because then that can break out of some of the security and some of the self-containedness that we like of the iframe, so that's not what we would suggest you use. But iframes are totally still semantic and totally still usable.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Robin?
And then
couple of questions. First one on the ad swapping. I think right now the standard that we have is that we have to match omniture hits to every ad impression so that the numbers line up. So if you're resizing the browser and you're doing ad swapping and you do 3 or 4 different ad swaps, how would we then handle the fact that there's not 3 or 4 different page views? And would our data then come out of sync? That's the first question. The second question is, have you put any thought into the, what's that size, 970 by 66 OPA pushdown units that actually force content down the page? So we still have some of those on our home pages. And so with an iframe, that can cause problems with trying to, flow the rest of the content around it.
yeah, so there are a couple things. First question is, yes, impressions are an issue. Fortunately, outside of people doing responsive web design or people who have the responsive web design tick, users don't generally drag and resize and squish their browser around. So the only real time that you would see, one of the only real scenarios where you would see a user changing screen sizes without doing a refresh is if they changed orientation on their device, which for sure happens, but it's one of the disadvantages to ad swapping right now is every new page load or every new ad load is a new impression, and I don't at the moment have a very good solution to that. It's one of the disadvantages. As for page pushdowns, those are trickier for precisely the reason you said. Iframes are boxed in. Now that being said, what's this? What's this?
I was just saying if it rotated and you saw 2 ads, that would be a second impression. I mean, it would be legitimate.
Right, but it wouldn't be a new omniture hit.
Yeah.
Right, so that's the issue. As for page pushdowns are harder. They're harder, but they're not totally undoable. So you can do some JavaScript magic to pass, for instance, a background color into an iframe, or you can use some of the new HTML5 things, such as seamless iframes, to allow for iframes to inherit some properties of the page that they're on. And then you can use some JavaScript fired from the iframe itself back to the ad space, back to the userland space to change the size of the ad. So the way that I'm actually sizing all of these ads is a really nifty CSS technique called intrinsic ratios, which essentially allow me to lock an element to a ratio. And I could, in theory, have these all attached to classes and have the iframe, the pushdown ad, when it's time to squish back up, send off an event to the page itself to say, swap my classes to put in my new intrinsic ratio, and then the ad will resize. And because the ad, bless you, is built in a responsive manner, then the ad will know it's been resized, and it can all work. And with CSS transitions, it becomes very silky smooth and becomes GPU accelerated in some places, and it's doable. It just is a little bit more work.
All right.
Other questions, or I think that's it? Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And